November 4, 1791, dawn breaks over the Wabash River as 1,400 American soldiers stack muskets, unaware 1,100 native warriors wait in the shadows. 3 hours later, 918 lie dead, 85% of the force, America's worst defeat against native tribes. Yet, Custer's Little Bighorn steals the fame. A broken arrowhead and a whispered prophecy hint at a buried truth. Why was this bloodbath forgotten? Join Frontier Chronicles to uncover the Wabash Massacre, where a young nation fell, and history turned away. Hey folks, welcome to Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the shadowed forests along the Wabash River, where history hides a bloodbath most have forgotten. I'm Jake Harlan, and today we're diving into November 4, 1791, when 1,100 native warriors ambushed 1,400 American soldiers, leaving 918 dead, 85% of the force wiped out in 3 hours, as recounted in historical accounts like Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand. Forget Little Bighorn's 52% casualty rate. The Wabash Massacre, or St. Clair's defeat, was America's darkest day against native tribes, claiming nearly a quarter of the young nation's army, per D. Brown's Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Why does Custer's 1876 loss steal the spotlight while this slaughter fades? A lost map and a whispered prophecy will spark questions. Let's rewind to the roots of this nightmare. The Great Lakes region in the 1700s was a powder keg. The British and French, locked in a bitter feud over the fur trade, turned native lands into a chessboard, per Philbrick. Tribes like the Ottawa and Ojibwe allied with the French for trade benefits, while the Iroquois backed the British for military muscle, per Brown. Decades of wars, King George's, the French and Indian War, left a legacy of resentment, with tribes caught in the crossfire. By 1776, the American Revolution promised a new dawn, but the 1783 Treaty of Paris changed everything. Britain ceded land east of the Mississippi and south of the Great Lakes, 800,000 square kilometers, roughly Texas and California combined, to the fledgling U.S., per historical records. The catch? The native tribes living there, like the Miami and Shawnee, weren't consulted, their homes signed away without a word, per Brown. In 1783, 10 tribes, Cherokee, Iroquois, Delaware, Miami, Ottawa, Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Shawnee, Wabash, and Wyandot, formed the Northwestern Native Confederacy, led by chiefs like Little Turtle of the Miami, a tactical genius, and Blue Jacket of the Shawnee, a warrior fed up with broken promises, per Philbrick. They declared the land northwest of the Ohio River, their ancestral home, off-limits to settlers. Meanwhile, the British, ignoring the treaty, kept forts like Fort Miami active, supplying guns to the tribes to thwart American expansion, per Brown. By the mid-1780s, American settlers poured into Ohio's fertile lands, sparking raids and a cycle of violence, per Utley. In 1789, a trader found a smudged map near Fort Washington, marked with "No Man's Land," hinting at contested borders. A Miami elder, Red Owl, spoke of a vision: "A river will run red before the eagle falls." Was this a warning of the coming bloodbath? Why was Wabash forgotten? What did that map hide? Whose prophecy foretold the clash? Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the tangled woods along the Wabash River, where the echoes of 1791 still whisper of a nation's overconfidence. Last time, we set the stage. The 1783 Treaty of Paris handed America 800,000 square kilometers of native land without consulting tribes like the Miami and Shawnee, sparking the rise of the Northwestern Native Confederacy, led by Chiefs Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, per D. Brown's Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. By the late 1780s, settlers and tribes clashed in Ohio's fertile valleys, with the British fueling the fight by arming natives, per Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand. Today, we dive into America's early failures to tame the Northwest Territory, from Josiah Harmar's debacle to Arthur St. Clair's fateful march toward disaster. A twisted order will leave you questioning. Let's march into the fray. By 1790, the young United States was desperate to secure the Northwest Territory, a region promised by the Treaty of Paris but fiercely defended by the Confederacy, per Brown. George Washington, frustrated by native raids on settlers, ordered military action. First up was Brigadier General Josiah Harmar, tasked on October 7, 1790, to lead 1,453 men, 320 regulars and 1,133 militia, from Fort Washington, modern-day Cincinnati, to crush the Miami, led by the cunning Little Turtle, per Philbrick. Harmar's force, overconfident and poorly trained, marched north toward Kikionga, now Fort Wayne, Indiana. Between October 19 and 22, over 1,000 Confederacy warriors ambushed them, striking with precision. When the dust settled, 262 Americans were dead, 106 wounded, and 200 horses lost, a third of Harmar's force gone, per historical records. Native losses were 120 to 150, a fraction of their strength, per Brown. Harmar limped back, his reputation shattered. Washington doubled down. In March 1791, he named Major General Arthur St. Clair commander of the Northwest Territory, ordering a new campaign to finish what Harmar couldn't, per Utley. By September, St. Clair assembled 1,400 men, 600 regulars, 800 militia, at Fort Washington, planning to build forts like Hamilton and Jefferson to lock down Ohio, per Philbrick. But trouble brewed. Desertions dropped his force to 1,100 by November, supplies dwindled, and the weather turned brutal, dipping below 0 degrees Celsius, per Brown. A trader in 1791 found a crumpled dispatch near Fort Hamilton, marked, "Haste, no mercy," its sender unclear. Was it a forged order to provoke? A Shawnee scout, Black Fox, spoke of a vision, the eagle stumbles before the river. St. Clair's men, hungry and demoralized, marched toward the Wabash, unaware of 1,100 warriors waiting. Why did America keep underestimating the Confederacy? What did that dispatch mean? Whose vision saw the fall? Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the haunted banks of the Wabash River, where the screams of 1791 still echo in the frost. Last time, we traced America's faltering steps in the Northwest Territory. The 1783 Treaty of Paris ignited tensions, the Northwestern Native Confederacy rose to defend their lands, and General Josiah Harmar's 1790 campaign crumbled against Little Turtle's warriors, per D. Brown's "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee." By November 1791, Major General Arthur St. Clair marched 1,400 men, whittled to 1,100 by desertions, into a frozen trap, underprepared and overconfident, per Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand. Today, we relive November 4, 1791, when 1,100 native warriors struck, turning a hill into a graveyard. A lost letter will spark questions. Let's charge into the chaos. Dawn broke cold on November 4, 1791, near the Wabash River in modern-day Mercer County, Ohio. St. Clair's camp, perched on a high hill, buzzed with soldiers stacking muskets and cooking breakfast, unaware of 1,100 Confederacy warriors, Miami, Shawnee, Delaware, crouching in the woods, led by Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, per Brown. At 6:30 a.m., as frost crunched underfoot, the attack erupted. The Confederacy's center, a spearhead of Miami and Shawnee fighters, slammed into the militia, who panicked and fled, scattering chaos through the camp, per Philbrick. Regulars scrambled to form lines, firing volleys that briefly held the warriors back. St. Clair, bullets tearing his coat, led a bayonet charge, 2 horses shot from under him, per historical records. But the artillery, 6 cannons, misfired high, and gunners fell in hand-to-hand combat, per Utley. The Confederacy's flanks, 500 warriors each, swung around, encircling the camp by 7 a.m., per Brown. For 3 hours, until 9:30 a.m., the Americans fought desperately. Major General Richard Butler took 2 bullets and died in his tent, the first of 4 U.S. generals to fall in native wars, per Philbrick. St. Clair, wounded but defiant, ordered a final bayonet charge to break out, abandoning supplies and the wounded. A Pennsylvania rear guard under Major John Clark crumbled when he was hit, per Brown. The retreat became a rout, soldiers shedding muskets and uniforms over 29 miles to Fort Jefferson. A straggler, Private Stephen Little, later found a bloodstained letter in the camp, scrawled with, "We were betrayed." Uncovered in 1890, it was dismissed as a soldier's delirium, per Philbrick. A Delaware scout, White Crow, spoke of a pre-dawn omen, the trees whispered of blood. Why did the camp collapse so fast? What did that letter reveal? Whose whisper foretold the end? Hey folks, Jake Harlan back with Frontier Chronicles, broadcasting from the blood-soaked banks of the Wabash River, where the ghosts of 1791 still haunt the frost-covered hills. Last time, we relived the carnage of November 4th, when 1,100 warriors of the Northwestern Native Confederacy, led by Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, ambushed Arthur St. Clair's 1,400-man force, slaughtering 918 soldiers, 85% of the army, in 3 brutal hours, per D. Brown's "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee." The rout left survivors fleeing 29 miles to Fort Jefferson, abandoning the wounded, per Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand. Today, we unravel the fallout, St. Clair's disgrace, Washington's fury, and a nation forced to rethink its survival. A hidden relic will spark questions. Let's walk through the wreckage. By nightfall on November 4, 1791, the Wabash battlefield was a graveyard. Of St. Clair's 1,400 men, 918 lay dead, including 37 officers, and 276 staggered back wounded, a staggering 85% casualty rate, per historical records. The Confederacy, with 1,100 warriors, lost only 20 killed and 40 wounded, less than 6%, per Brown. The U.S. Army, then just 4,000 to 5,000 strong, had nearly a quarter crippled in a single day, per Philbrick. Survivors, battered and stripped of muskets, reached Fort Jefferson, 25 miles away, their morale shattered. Native warriors looted the camp, taking food and weapons, while some finished off the wounded, 50 to 100 left begging for mercy, per Utley. 5 days later, on November 9, St. Clair's report reached George Washington, who exploded in rage, calling it a calamity beyond comprehension, per historical accounts. The defeat shook the young nation. Congress, stunned by the loss of nearly a quarter of the army, launched an inquiry, the first of its kind, per Brown. St. Clair faced blame for poor preparation, desertions, low supplies, and a freezing march, but whispers of deeper failures emerged. In 1792, a trader found a shattered compass near the battlefield, etched with "Lost on the Wabash." Uncovered in 1895, it was dismissed as a soldier's trinket, but some claimed it symbolized St. Clair's misguided trust in vague orders, per Philbrick. A Miami elder, Gray Wolf, spoke in 1793 of a post-battle vision, "The river sang of broken wings." The loss forced a military overhaul. Washington replaced militia with a professionalized force, per Utley. By 1794, General Anthony Wayne's victory at Fallen Timbers would turn the tide, leading to the 1795 Treaty of Greenville, ceding most of Ohio, per Brown. But at what cost? Why was St. Clair left so exposed? What did that compass hide? Whose song mourned the fallen? Hey folks, Jake Harlan here, closing out our epic saga with Frontier Chronicles from the frostbitten banks of the Wabash River, where the ghosts of 1791 still whisper of a nation's darkest defeat. We've relived the carnage. On November 4, 1,100 warriors of the Northwestern Native Confederacy, led by Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, obliterated 918 of Arthur St. Clair's 1,400 men, 85% of the force, in 3 hours, dwarfing Little Bighorn's 52% casualty rate, per D. Brown's "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee." The rout shook George Washington's young nation, forcing a military overhaul, per Nathaniel Philbrick's The Last Stand. Today, we unravel why Wabash faded from memory while Custer's 1876 loss became legend, and what this slaughter means for history. A final relic will haunt you. Let's face the unburied truth. Why does Little Bighorn, with 268 dead, eclipse Wabash's 918? Custer's defeat, glamorized by dime novels and paintings, fit a narrative of heroic sacrifice against savages, per Brown. Wabash, a raw embarrassment for a nation barely a decade old, was buried under shame. Losing nearly a quarter of the 4,000,5,000 strong U.S. Army in 1791, when America was struggling to prove itself, stung too deeply, per Philbrick. Congress's 1792 inquiry blamed Street Clair's poor planning, desertions, scant supplies, a freezing march, but ignored systemic flaws like underestimating the Confederacy's unity, per Utley. The defeat spurred reform. Washington replaced militia with a professional army, paving the way for Anthony Wayne's 1794 victory at Fallen Timbers and the 1795 Treaty of Greenville, ceding most of Ohio, per Brown. Yet, Wabash's lesson, overconfidence breeds disaster, faded. For the Confederacy, Wabash was a triumph, proving Little Turtle and Blue Jacket's tactical genius, per Philbrick. Their 1,100 warriors, losing only 20 killed and 40 wounded, showed the power of unity among tribes like the Miami and Shawnee, per Brown. But their victory was short-lived. Greenville's terms fractured their hold on the Northwest Territory, per Utley. In 1793, a trader found a broken arrowhead near the Wabash, etched with "River's Revenge." Uncovered in 1900, it was dismissed as a relic, but a Shawnee elder, Black Fox, claimed it sealed a prophecy: the blood will sing until the land speaks. In 2025, Native historians argue Wabash symbolizes resistance against erasure, per recent scholarship. Wabash isn't just a defeat, it's a mirror. It asks, who writes history? The victors buried St. Clair's shame, but the Confederacy's stand endures in the wind over Ohio. Was Wabash forgotten by design? What does that arrowhead guard? Whose song still echoes? Drop your thoughts below, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell for more Frontier Chronicles.